Gamagori, Japan plays host for round 2 of the 1996 International Triathlon Union World Cup. The world's top athletes are here to take on the unique multi-loop stadium venue that provides a style of racing unlike any other triathlon. The athletes have spent the last 10 days in Japan. They arrived here in Gamagori fresh from the opening event on the subtropical island of Ishigaki. The setting couldn't be more different, but the racing will be as fast and furious as ever. Today's race is based around the Speedboat Stadium in downtown Gamagori, some 50 miles from Japan's 4th largest city, Nagoya. It's another warm, humid day, but despite that, the water temperature in the stadium lake is just 18.5 degrees Celsius, and that means wetsuits will be worn for the swim. The men and women will again race separately. This time, though, it's the women who start first. So let's have a look at the course. A 3-lap swim with a difficult ramped exit to negotiate at the end of each lap. It's then 7 laps on the bike, a flat, exposed course. We could see bigger packs forming than we did in round 1 in Ishigaki. And finally, a flat, fast run, 4 laps, ending in front of a packed grandstand. A reminder of the distances: 1.5 kilometers for the swim, 40 kilometers on the bike, and 10 kilometers on the run. The winning time for the men could be under the 1 hour 50 mark. The women could break 2 hours. There's no Miles Stewart this time. Injury in Ishigaki puts him out for 3 weeks. So look out for Alexandra Manzan, the young Brazilian who finished second to Stewart in round 1. And Leandro Macedo, the other top Brazilian and the former World Cup Series winner. Ralph Eggert from Germany will once again lead the European Challenge. In the women's race, who can stop Emma Carney? Germany's Sabine Westhoff has returned to the World Cup circuit in great form. And another Australian, Rena Hill, could prove a threat. She won here in Gamagori last year. So the women race first. One other athlete to look out for, the Canadian Carol Montgomery, in her first big international race of the year. The air temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. There's a crowd of 20,000 in the stadium. It's round 2 of the 1996 Triathlon World Cup. As always, alongside myself, Nick Fellows in the commentary box, former world number 3, Catherine Davis. Catherine, immediately we noticed a rather unorthodox start here.
It is indeed. It's very different from last week in Ishigaki. They have about 10 seconds to jump off the dock and assemble at the start line before the gun goes off.
Keep your eyes peeled there for the athlete in cap number 1. It's a red cap. That's Emma Carney, the winner in Ishigaki 10 days ago. And they're off a much easier and more open start than we witnessed in round 1. But round 2 of the ITU World Cup Tour is underway very smoothly indeed.
Like you said, Nick, it's a much wider start, so everybody is swimming in clear water. It means the good swimmers will come to the fore and nobody will get boxed in at the end.
Well, it's not the warmest of water conditions. 18.5 degrees Celsius is a little colder than many of the athletes would have anticipated with these humid Japanese weather conditions. Ute Mukul of Germany looks to be the early leader in the same position as she was in round 1 of the tour in Ishigaki. But let's take a look at the start once again.
Although it's not a narrow start, it is very difficult in that they're treading water and they have to use a lot of power to start up full speed right from the start, and it sends the heart rate right up.
A lot of jostling there once again, but a much easier start, and it's allowed the German girls to power and forge ahead, really showing their strength. But they also know that this is the part of the competition where they really must take advantage. They know they're the strongest swimmers. Ute Mukul, and I'm sure Sabine Westhoff will be up there with her. This is what they did in Ishigaki, only to be caught by Emma Carney on the run. So her tactics surely this week, Catherine, will to pull even further ahead in both the swim and the cycle stages, the power sections.
Well, that may very well be Ute Mukul's strategy, but it looks like she's got 3 or 4 women tacked on right behind. I would imagine that, oh, that's Rena Hill right there. I would imagine that Sabina's right on her tail. So last week we saw Ute Mukul taking quite a lead and separating herself from the other women. But right now she's in a pack, a lead pack that is a few meters ahead of the chase group.
Well, there's no question the gutsy performances of Ute Mukkel. She's making her debut on the World Cup Tour, a sensational 15th in the World Championships last year. This is the first time she'll compete every round of the World Cup. It's only a matter of time before she claims a top position. Also in that lead pack, as Catherine mentioned, Rena Hill.
Racing through a stadium like this is definitely probably a bit more enjoyable than going out and sort of disappearing for an hour. It seems a lot faster and so time goes a lot quicker because it's more pumping. I really enjoyed this race last year. I've been racing through the stadium here constantly with the crowd cheering. It's a nice buzz.
Coming out of the water at the end of lap 1 with 2 more circuits to go, Ute Mukkel of Germany leads. Second position just behind here, another newcomer to the Tour, the Aussie Grace Deirdre. Rena Hill also for Australia third, and they're diving into the water. Sabine Westhoff in 4th position. But Catherine, once again, the new girls dominating in the swim.
I am surprised that Ute Mukkel hasn't opened up a gap on the followers, but I think probably last week they let her go, not knowing how strong she was in the bike. And this time they're determined to stay on her tail and not let her get away in the swim.
Emma Carney comes out of the water in 5th position. Remember, in round 1 of the Tour in Ishigaki, she only managed 11th in the swim section of the competition. So this is a better performance from Emma Carney, who's in a strong placing. Her specialist discipline, the run, comes right at the end of this event.
It is remarkable how Emma Carney has learned to swim, because 2 or 3 years ago when she started doing triathlon, she couldn't swim to save her life, as she was fond of saying. And she's taken on a swim coach, and she's coming out now of the water with the top girls.
The rest of the pack dive back into the water, 2 laps to go. But Ute Mukkel of Germany, as expected, is drawing clear. She's the sensation of the swim and the bike riding in the early part of this World Cup Tour, but not as far as we'd expected. Our expert in the box, Catherine Davis, pointing out certainly not dominating as she did in Ishigaki round 1. Ute Mukkel's arrival on the scene has certainly spiced up the crucial early exchanges in World Cup triathlon. Just as in round 1 in Ishigaki, she set a blistering pace in the swim, taking only Sabine Westhoff, Rena Hill and another Australian, Grace Deirdre, with her. By the end of lap 2, the lead group was almost a minute clear of the chase pack. Emma Carney was doing her best to keep that gap to a minimum, but it was becoming obvious she'd be heading into the bike stage with a lot of work to do. Coming to the closing stages of the first leg of the competition now, and the lead has changed. It's Grace Deirdre for Australia, who turned up at this competition with her swim coach, which is pretty much unheard of in the world of triathlon. Shows that focus has paid dividends. She's the race leader, 18.58 for the 1500 metres swim. Ute Mukkel is tucked in behind her. Sabine Westhoff and Rena Hill, the same quartet, still leading the early stages. This is unique as well, up and down, quite a lot of stairs into that transition area.
That is one of the hardest things to do when you come out of the swim. You haven't been using your legs that much because you've got to either have a wetsuit on and your legs are pretty much immobile, and then you have to climb up a set of stairs and climb down them. That's really hard on the legs.
We've seen in triathlons gone by all over the world that the race can so easily be thrown away in this important transition. This is the most difficult of the two, with the garments wet, trying to get the wetsuit away and also pick up the bike. There's no question that the Australian will be away first, with the 2 Germans and Rena Hill, also of Australia, getting away in the lead cycle pack.
We saw a few seconds ago how Rena was struggling to get her wetsuit off. At the same time, she was trying to buckle up her bike helmet. So as you said, Nick, it is definitely the hardest transition, and it's very important to get well placed in that first pack.
And the girls will need all the help they can get, because Emma Carney has come out in 6th position. 1 minute 20 behind the leaders, but that's 6 places better than she finished 10 days ago in Ishigaki. And Emma Carney has improved in the swim and will be threatening that leading group in no time at all. Off come the swim goggles, the red hat, carrying bib number 1, and the big race favourite has had an excellent start. She will really grow in confidence after that swim, surely.
She will be looking over her shoulder, though, because one person who wasn't in the race last week is Carol Montgomery. She's usually one of the top swimmers, and she is perhaps the only female triathlete who can rival Emma Carney in the run. So Emma knows she has to get out there quickly.
The transition now for Emma Carney. This process has been practiced 1,000 times. It's a matter of automatic. There is the athlete we're talking of, Carol Montgomery, in her first World Cup of the season, training, deciding not to compete in Ishigaki. A little stumble to get into the pedals for Emma Carney, and Carol Montgomery is right in the chase.
The first few races of the season are always so difficult because although you may be fit from training all winter, you're not really race fit.
There are no set transition formats. Each race brings its own problems in the changeover from swim to bike and then bike to run. In Ishigaki last week, the athletes were taking just 30 seconds to exit the water and start the bike. Here in Gamagori, that process took well over a minute. The race leaders had been cycling for over 2 minutes by the time Emma Carney was on her bike. Ahead of them, 40 kilometers over 7 laps on a flat, fast course. He rejoined the race action at the closing stages of lap 1 of 7, and Sabine Westhoff has worked incredibly hard to get back into the lead pack. Ute Mukkel there making her challenge to take the lead. Just behind her is Grace Deirdre, and also Rena Hill of Australia is tucked in. These 4 ahead, but now, Catherine, the drafting tactical play really comes in.
Well, you can see that they've learned a lot since the early days of drafting. They know how to ride in pack formation and how to rotate properly, where the first person drops off to the back and the second person takes over the lead. And this is definitely the way to get ahead of a chase pack. What is interesting to note is that Ute Mukkel hasn't gone off by herself. I think she's learned a lot from last week, and she knows that it's to her best advantage to work with the other top swimmers.
And of course, last week in Ishigaki, Ute Mukkel had the bike. She thought competition in the palm of her hands, only to be denied by Emma Carney, who we are sure is chasing her way up the field right now. These are the leading 4, with Sabine Graf Westhoff of Germany taking the lead after that poor transition. She's worked well. This is when the athletes come into the stadium and really enjoy the roar by this 20,000 strong crowd.
As Rena said during her interview, it is very different to go through a packed stadium like this. It gives you a real buzz every time you go by the crowd. And they go through 7 times, so that's just added momentum to their race.
Over the intersection, taking them almost underground, then back into the open air once again. Not quite as tight and as a technical course as Ishigaki, but still very fast. Concentration and focus is needed throughout. But the leading 4 pushing, driving hard, settling into a good rhythm. And as we noted earlier, the drafting tactic coming into play, jockeying for top position. The chase pack is some 58 seconds behind, but is brimming with experience and quality. Number 10 just has the edge there. That's Jenny Rose, the World Cup champion of '94. Emma Carney, winner of the opening event, and the world champion of '94, is tucked in there. And New Zealand's Sarah Harrow is also in the chase. And it's only a matter of time. We feel that those 3 will join this lead pack, which now seems to be headed by Rena Hill of Australia, looking to pull clear.
We saw a minute ago that it looked like Rena was struggling to keep up with these 3 front runners, but now she's leading the pack. Rena really has come along in her cycling. She's more well known for being a strong runner and swimmer.
Top American Gail Lawrence looking on there. Her competition has come to quite a short, abrupt end, suffering from cramp as the third group, some 1 minute 25 seconds behind, go out of shot. Jackie Gallagher and Carol Montgomery in that group. We go back to the leaders now, and they're starting to stretch out. No longer the drafting tactic coming into play. Driving hard, and it looks to be Sabine Westhoff and Ute Mukkel. The German girls have had enough of the challenge from the Australians. These 2 worked well together in the cycle in Ishigaki and are playing the same tactic here again in Gamagori. 26-year-old German triathlete Sabine Westhoff has made a sensational comeback to the World Cup Tour, finishing in 6th position in Ishigaki round 1. '94 was the best year for the German, with World Cup victories in Switzerland and Canada. She's back to her best. A fairy tale story come true. Many said Sabine Westhoff would not be back so soon after a horrific crash on the bike, but she's looking as strong and as focused as she was some 2 seasons ago when she was one of the top performers on the World Cup. Jackie Gallagher for Australia leads the third group, 1 minute 50 seconds behind, but that's not out of contention as we witnessed in Ishigaki. And just behind them is the 4th group, led by Carol Montgomery, the top Canadian in her first event. Race favourite Emma Carney just ahead of Gallagher, 20 seconds approximately as they go into their 4th lap of 7.
And there's Carol Montgomery leading up her chase pack. She's in the 4th group, about to catch up with the 3rd one. And that is a very unusual position for Carol Montgomery. She's one of the top swimmers, but I would suspect that she spent the winter training the run. She has a very good chance of making the Canadian Olympic team that will be competing in this summer's Olympic Games in Atlanta.
And those are the names that these 2 performers will have in the back of their minds. Ute Mukkel leads from Sabine Westhoff. Both these triathletes enjoying getting round 2 underway. The men start in around about 2 hours. And watching the women's competition from the grandstand, Brazilian star Alexandra Manzan.
the first guy is not here today, so the race is different. So we will see what happens, and I will try to do my best to get out of the water with the guys, to have a good bike transition, and try to do a good run like last week. And if I do that, I'm sure that I will have a good result. We will see. To be like feel like a favorite, because it's better when you are not favorite and you just appear and give a surprise. But since this happened last week, I cannot do anything. So we will try to do another surprise like difference here.
Second in the women's race last week was Australian Jackie Gallagher. She hasn't finished out of the top 2 in any triathlon she's taken part in over the past year. But can she go one better this time?
A little bit more nervous than I was last week. I wasn't really that nervous at all, so I guess that's good. I'm normally nervous before a race, but I've been feeling good. I've been training well all week and feeling good for this one, because you've got to look forward, not backwards. So, you know, I mean, I think I'm in form at the moment, and you know, I'm only going to get better from here as well.
Back to the race action, and still the German girls hold on to the top positions, working well as a pair. Ute Muckel and Sabine Westhoff. There's Muckel now taking her turn to set the pace, with Sabine Westhoff just tucked in behind, drafting, and perhaps just getting a little breather before she exchanges positions with her teammate. There's a pack behind them, just behind them, of Emma Carney, Sarah Harrow, Jenny Rose, and also Rena Hill. They're all strong runners, Catherine, and the German girls will know that.
Well, I think the two Germans have taken stock of the situation from last week, and they know that they have to work really well together to get ahead of this chase group. Emma Carney actually ran 5 minutes faster than both Ute and Sabine last week, so they know that they have to put a real gap on that chase group.
Well, the German girls, of course, know there's a 10-kilometre run to come, but they've dominated this cycle ride and lead going into the last lap. There's the quartet that we were talking of, headed up by Emma Carney. Rena Hill is there, Jenny Harrow and Jenny Rose, and Sarah Harrow, I should say, all there. And these two German girls looking to get as much space between those 4 runners as they possibly can, if either of them are to claim their first World Cup victory of the Tour.
It is remarkable that 2 women can actually hold off a pack of 4. So I would guess that Sabine and Ute are working very well together to be able to hold off a group of 4.
There, the chase back, 1 minute 17 seconds behind the leaders, and that's a comfortable margin. Cast your memories back to Ishigaki, and Emma Carney was the quickest on the bike as well as the run. She's got much more work to do here today in Gamagori.
Emma's thinking of what lies ahead, but she also knows that Carol Montgomery is in a chase pack behind her, and she is the one runner that she's afraid of today.
All of these riders will be aware of the quality of running that the Canadian can display. She's still to decide, Carol Montgomery, whether she will race in the track and field at the Atlanta Games. The 5 or the 10-kilometre run is her choice still to be made. Emma Carney, a former cross-country world-class athlete herself, has a little more work to do. She too will favour the run, but there's no question the German girls really have united and worked as a very strong team here. Perhaps the only downside of this tactic is that there's just 2 of them working on the drafting rather than 4 or 6, which is double the amount of work and tired legs. Gallagher leads the second chase group, and right at the back there, Carol Montgomery coasting, waiting to get those running shoes on and make her final challenge of the day.
Wise tactics being employed by Carol Montgomery. You can see Jackie Gallagher is doing most of the work, and she's going to have tired legs when she gets off the bike. Carol is right there at the back of the pack, and she's going to be able to burst out of that transition and have the run of her life.
The race pattern had been established with the 2 Germans, Westhoff and Muckel, working together at the front of the field. Over a minute behind, Carney would have to wait for the 10-kilometre run before she would have any chance of taking control. Behind her, Carol Montgomery could even prove a threat. She's the one runner in the whole race who can match Carney's speed over 10 kilometres. 40 kilometres of hard cycling come to an end for Sabine Westhoff and Ute Muckel there off the bike first. Very fast, 59 minutes, 17 seconds.
That is remarkable cycling for women to go under 1 hour. Don't forget that that time includes part of the first transition, and it's a very twisting turning course, so it really is a very, very fast time for these 2 German women.
On with the running shoes, and away they go for a 10-kilometre run, knowing that some of the sport's finest runners are just behind them. Here comes the second chase pack, led by Emma Carney, carrying bib number 1. She was the winner in Ishigaki. Will she take number 2? And can Ute Mukul and Sabine Westhoff keep the Australian and the Canadians at bay? They've got around about a 1 minute 50-second advantage, but we know that this is the least favoured discipline of the 3.
I don't think you can really get any idea how hard it is to come off the bike and start the run unless you've actually done a triathlon. Your legs really feel like wooden blocks, and especially we've seen them climb up and down those stairs.
Well, the chase pack have worked hard in the closing stages. They're actually 1 minute 34 seconds behind, which is good news for the likes of Emma Carney. She made that up with relative ease in Ishigaki. She'll look for a smooth, quick, relatively easy transition, looking to hook the bike up, on with the running shoes, and away she goes as once again Emma Carney starts her chase on the 2 German girls, Ute Mukul and Sabine Westhoff, who are away but not by too much.
You can tell that Emma Carney has really practiced her transition. She was the first one in the transition area, the first one with her helmet off, first one with the shoes on, and first one off.
The 95 World Cup champion starts to settle immediately into that very smooth and flowing running style that really does sweep her around this 10-kilometre 4-lap track. And there, look, liquids needed, but she will settle very quickly indeed. The German girls are battling so well. Again, they're very powerful, but certainly not as sleek and as smooth in the running section. They have the advantage. Here she comes, Emma Carney for Australia, settling in. Smooth, the third pack, headed by Jackie Gallagher, is driving for home again, looking around 2 minutes 45 seconds behind the 2 leading German girls. Off already at the halfway point in the first of the 4 laps, and looking a lot smoother, a lot more focused than they did in this position in Ishigaki some 10 days ago. The transition now, Carol Montgomery is in there somewhere. She's the top runner on the tour this year. Watch out for the Canadian.
It is unusual to see the women coming in such a big bunch. Usually they're more stretched out in smaller groups, and I think it just indicates that the women are getting better and better every year, and there's less time between the top ones and the ones further back down the field.
Confirmation of the work in hand for Carol Montgomery, 2 minutes 48 seconds, with Jackie Gallagher also the same margin to make up.
You race in Australia and you know that Australian competition is really strong, and I mean, I've done well in Australia the last few years. I just won my 3rd national series, so that's pretty significant, but you don't know exactly what it's going to be like at world level, and to go in there thinking, yeah, I'm good in Australia, and then for it actually to pay off and to do well at world level, it certainly makes you think, well, yeah, I can really have a go, I can really do it, I can really mix it with the best people in the world. I mean, I really believe that the sport as it is now and the future of the sport is in versatility, and you have to be able to cope with any situation, any distance, any kind of format, and that's the way I plan my racing, is to be able to cope with anything that happens.
4 kilometres into the race, Sabine Westhoff leads, but look who's joining them once again. It's a repeat of Ishigaki. Emma Carney is about to take the lead for Australia once again as she goes in search of her 2nd World Cup victory of the season, and also to successfully defend her World Cup Tour title. Rena Hill is going well in 4th position also for Australia, and the Canadian Carol Montgomery is picking her way through the field, also looking very smooth. Katie Webb there in screen as the back markers have really been strewn out by this amazing pace, originally set by the Germans, but now taken up by Emma Carney, the leader of round 2 of the World Cup Tour, and isn't she making it look oh so easy?
You can really see there what a beautiful runner Emma is. She's got such a smooth stride, she's got a much faster cadence, leg turnover than the 2 German girls, and she's just a natural runner, much more so than these 2 Germans who are stronger on the swim and the bike.
Well, now she's seen off Westhoff and Ute Mukul. Perhaps now the only challenger could be Rena Hill there, now joining the 2 German girls, paying the price for their lack of strength in the final run section. Carney striding into the halfway point with another world-class performance.
I'm feeling good. I've worked hard on my running over the summer, because I know now with all the drafting it's going to come down to runners race more often than not. I had a bike accident back at home, which caused me to miss most of the season, so I'm a lot fresher than I was this time last year. Triathlon's at the stage now where no race is easy. There's nothing wrong with a tough race.
Another athlete enjoying a tough race, Carol Montgomery, the Canadian moving through the field with the fastest run of the day. But she'd finished the bike stage over a minute behind Carney, too much to really threaten the leader. Jackie Gallagher had slipped back out of the top 5, but chasing Carney all the way, the other talented Australian Rena Hill. Last year's winner here in Gamagori, today she'd have to settle for second place. We rejoin the race with Carney on the run-in for her second successive World Cup victory. Emma Carney salutes the crowd. Round 2 of the tour has gone to the Australian. She's in unbeatable form. Perhaps Carol Montgomery is one of the few that can stop her in rounds to come. But Japan has gone Emma Carney's way. She really has enjoyed both events.
You can see that she's got Rena Hill right behind her, but she doesn't look worried at all. She knows that she's one of the top runners out there and certainly the top all-round triathlete.
The World Cup champion of '95 has got off to the perfect start in 1996, and a former world champion will look to the Worlds of this year as yet another one of her successes for this season. Rena Hill comes in second, but the times are getting faster and faster.
You don't often see the women going under 2 hours, but now they've dipped 2.5 minutes under the 2-hour mark. That is really tremendous racing, because you know you can count on the Japanese to measure the course down to the last millimeter. So a really, really fast time from these two women.
And Carol Montgomery of Canada, what a tremendous performance. Remember, this is her first race of the season, so the early season butterflies now finally disposed of. Carol Montgomery running with ease. She has to think of Atlanta as well as the ITU World Cup Tour, but this is a great performance for the Canadian. Third place then for Carol Montgomery. The battle for 4th and 5th turned into a sprint finish between the two German triathletes, with Muckel just beating Westhoff on the line. They were given the same time, and the top 5 looks like this. The winner, Emma Carney, her second successive victory on this year's World Cup Tour. Second was Rena Hill, third Carol Montgomery, 4th and 5th places occupied by the top Europeans. Jackie Gallagher finished 6th. The ITU has a new information service for anyone interested in finding out more about the World Cup. We'll be repeating this email address at the end of the programme.